Hi, welcome to Forbidden Panels PanelCast. I'm Justin, and with me tonight are the usual suspects, AJ, Richard, and Joey. How you guys doing?
Hey.
Hey, good.
How's it going?
Good. We have to
Still
pretend we
alive
haven't
and kicking, so
been
that's
for the past
positive.
20 minutes.
Exactly. That's how we measure these things now.
Is if we're still alive or not?
Yeah.
I was able to get up out of bed this morning, so I'm doing great.
So that is a plus.
Right.
So tonight we're going
I
to
didn't
talk
do-
about the wrap-up of X-Men 97 and the first two parts of Crisis on Infinite Earths. I think we're going to do Crisis first. Is that the plan?
Sure.
That's our plan. Yeah.
All right. So who wants to start us off?
Nobody wants to talk about
Nobody
about
wants to talk about this. Is that a
because
sign?
because the movies
Everybody
are
wants to talk about
crisis
X-Men.
on themselves.
That's not the truth.
So
Look, okay, I'll start. I only got through the first one. I did not get through the second one. I started it, but I didn't get very far. You know,
I love
the
that.
animation style is pretty basic, and I liked it a lot because of that. If it was for anything other than this is the Justice League, and it felt so kind of motion comic-y, and yet this is like the greatest Justice League storyline. Now, okay, I have to preface, like, watching these two shows has retaught me that I'm a Marvel person, and I love Marvel, and I don't actually really care about much of the DC universe, generally speaking. And I had forgotten that. So when I was watching it, I was like, well, this is good. And I remember this storyline, and I remember it being epic. But I also remember, I mean, I'm a little bit of a cynic too, and I remember being like, yeah, this is also just how they cleaned house with all the alternate storylines, and they just kind of retconned everything back into one. Now, it was cool. I love all of the. I've watched a fair amount of the DC animated shows, coming out of Max, and the quality is really good, generally speaking. I feel like this was actually not as good as some of the other ones I've seen. And I don't know why that is. Like, this is their grand storyline. But it wasn't, but the story is still there, and it is cool. I absorbed a lot of DC secondhand or later in life. So it is kind of interesting to watch it all happen in animated style, because I didn't read Crisis on Infinite Earths in the 80s. My nose was buried in what we're about to talk about.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But it was cool. Anyway, that was.
I'm the exact same way, with the exception of, I think we talked about this last week, the exception of like Batman and Justice League International. I never really cared about DC, and Vertigo, but that's not really the DC universe.
That's not the same thing. Yeah. I love Justice League International, and that's the only Justice League I love.
Yeah. I like you. I'm aware of all this stuff that happened. I'm aware of most of these characters, but like you said, the animation was, it was good, but it was just kind of basic. That's the thing about some of the other DC animated movies, is that when they're adapting specific stories, like from the comics, they do a bit mimicking of the artwork in the movies. They did it with like The Long Halloween. They did it with Gotham by Gaslight. They had some influence of that art in those stories. And this just seemed, not that it's bad, but it just seemed like, the Justice League animated TV show that was on, in the 90s.
Absolutely. There was no essence of George Perez.
Right. There's no style, like individual style at all. It was like cookie cutter DC animation. But which isn't bad. It's not bad animation, but it's not.
It's mimicking that Paul Dini, like that style, and yet it was a little bit simplistic. They don't take it far enough,
Right. But yeah,
Well,
story
it's
wise, I
mimicking
mean,
the art of the comics then.
yeah, but not even of Crisis because that was George Perez and
Right.
it had some style. It was just, I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but the art in Crisis on Infinite Earths is very basic. It very much is. It's something I'm the exact opposite of you guys when it comes to this. This is actually one of my favorite storylines. I read it at least once a year, and the art
well,
in
cool.
it is pretty basic. So
The art in the
it's
show,
the
or
art
the art in the
the
show,
art in this,
comic?
huh?
The art in the show or the art in the original
In
comic?
both. So the art, correct. So the art in the original comic, the only thing that was exceptional as far as the original comics goes for the art were the covers. It had some of the most amazing covers. One of the most iconic of Superman holding the dead Supergirl,
Yeah.
and shouting. It's an iconic cover. But the art
Sure.
inside the comics, I mean, you're talking, what was it, 1986, 1985, somewhere around there. Like it
Might have
was
been
very
85.
simplistic and basic. So it has that same simplistic look and feel to me. And like I said, it's a storyline I absolutely love. I read it at least once. It's one of those, like I've said before, like when we talked about comics before, when we talked about the X-Men, like there's certain things I go back and read constantly. I read the Fall of the Mutants, the Mutant Massacre, um, and Crisis on Infinite Earths is one of those that I just constantly go back and read. It's one of my favorite storylines. It's amazing. I really loved the first part and was really disappointed in the second.
Hmm.
I think
Yeah,
they just kind of, because they're cramming so much information into such, even though it's spread over two, you're still cramming so much information into so little time.
Yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
it did seem like there was some weird like editing choices. There was a couple times where I was like, well, what happened in between these two scenes? Because it seems like I can't remember specifically, but there was a couple times when they were just somewhere else, and like you can tell that the story they went to, stuff had happened to those people, but you didn't know what. And so it seems like there was like scenes missing or some weird editing or something. But like you said, there's so much to tell. And then I didn't know there was a third part
There's
because part two ended and it's all to be continued. I was like, oh, wait, what? So, because I was
there's a
finishing
lot
up
that
this
goes
morning.
on in the background of the comics.
Yeah.
There's so much information in the panels in the comics that it's hard to translate it into a cartoon.
See, that's George Perez. That's what
Like
George
throughout
Perez
reading it,
did.
you'll catch little things.
Yeah. Because
That's
Yeah.
I mean, when George Perez was doing Avengers, it was the same thing.
that
There's
dude
so
has a
much
very-
in every panel to look at.
exactly. That dude imparted a lot of information on every panel. That was one of those things. He's a very detailed artist,
Yeah.
like an Art Adams level almost, and he fills the panels, he fills the frame, all the time.
Yeah. There's like 10 people per panel like having
Yeah,
conversations and stuff.
they always say drawing team comics is so much harder than drawing single hero comics.
Mhm.
And you extrapolate out that to like every character in a certain universe, and you have to draw them all. It is kind of amazing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Because, I mean, maybe stylistically, George Perez isn't like flashy or anything, but his superpower is like the number of people he can put in a panel and make it clear and make them all look different. They're not like just the same shape with a different costume on. He makes it all clear what's going on in the background. That's like what George Perez does for sure.
Richard, do you feel like they did it justice?
Get it? Justice.
Leak.
Richard? Oh.
Is he frozen?
He's frozen. He must be frozen.
Yeah.
I thought part two. I liked the Bat family, and I was enticed. I like seeing the Bat family aspect of it.
I was excited to see
Damian,
Batman Beyond.
because Batman Beyond and Damian Wayne incorporated into both of them was something that wasn't included in the comic book originally.
Right.
So I was happy to see that part. What
Again,
I wasn't though, huh?
I was just gonna say again, my one thing I like about DC is Batman. So when that stuff was going on with all of them fighting each other, I was like, it drew me back into being interested again. So I was like,
right. But again, but like you said, when it wasn't Batman, I kind of didn't care anymore because they didn't seem to want to like extrapolate on anything else or give me anything else. And I don't know. Once the Flash was gone, like I mean, it's cool seeing the Harbinger come up and Supergirl and all that stuff, you know. But
Supergirl was.
Well, they
Supergirl was
also
interesting.
changed the,
huh?
Go ahead, Richard.
they also changed a lot of the storyline and a lot of the to add some of the more modern characters, like Batman
Yeah.
Beyond's in it.
Right. Yeah,
like,
we were just talking about
So
that.
that's what
that
I'm saying.
didn't exist
I
at the
like
time.
that. I seeing Batman Beyond and Damian Wayne show up in there was cool for me, you know.
Yeah. So they modernized it a bit, I think, for a lot of people too.
And seeing Batman,
I don't know.
Batman from that universe, warm up to the thought of a Bat family when he was anti-Bat family from the get-go.
Right.
Throughout the show, that was awesome for me. That was cool. That was a little added addendum that we didn't have in the comic, and so I was happy to see it. Sorry, Joey, to blow this all for you guys.
You're good.
But I thought that was really cool.
Read the comic. I get the gist. I have read the comics, you know, historically. So I know what it's all about.
Yeah.
But you're right with the animation. It's very simplistic animation, which I kind of enjoy when I see it on Archer, and I see it in some of the latest Justice League movies that they are releasing on Max. But I miss the old school, more detailed stuff, more running backgrounds, more stuff happening, and not just the bold, thick lines of the art that's being shown here.
And when you have things like Invincible out there and X-Men 97, you know, and what have you, you know that these kind of things can be pushed to a certain place, a certain kind of visual level. And
well, even Invincible to a point is still very simplistic.
True.
You know,
but
it's focus oriented with Invincible. Yeah. Like it'll go simplistic here and here, but this is going to be super detailed. Like his guts will be super detailed, you know. But over here, it's all simplistic. So it's the same but different at the same time.
Again, see, Invincible's doing a good job of mimicking the comic art because that's the way Ryan Otley draws. You know, he'll have like this whole thing of simplistic, but then, you know, somebody's head getting punched in is like super detailed, or, you know, 5,000 creatures mobbing on a spaceship is super detailed, you know?
Yeah. So, right.
Yeah.
And each of those creatures have a different hand movement to them.
Right.
In a different position, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, he didn't just copy and paste.
Right.
But yeah, so that's my feelings on part 2. I'm excited for part 3, but this is not Crisis to me. This is a different story with another Crisis title in it.
Yeah, well, like I said, they modernized it. They kind of it's evolved. It's not the exact same, but it's still I find it enjoyable. I like it.
Well, I'm not saying I don't like it. I'm just saying it's not my Crisis. You know, it's a different Crisis, and I'm enjoying that for what it is. Not my Crisis. Yeah, I know.
My Crisis.
Hashtag not my Crisis.
That's right. Hey, do you even fucking jujitsu, bro? But much in that way, I loved Psycho Pirate's story. I loved seeing that. That was awesome. And I was wanting to see more of that, you know. But yeah, for me, it's like all the Marvel movies compared to the Marvel comic books. You know, it's just in a different universe for me.
Right.
Same story, but just in a different universe, you know. So that's my vote anyway.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm with you guys. I was way more engaged with the first part than the second. And
Because the first was more familiar, but then started vying away from it.
right, and I thought I mean, and you haven't seen it yet, Joey, but I thought the whole fight with those shadow things was just way too long. It's like,
Yeah, it
or like
went on
silly.
forever.
for like
It was kinda
as long as
silly.
it went on for them just to turn into a giant monster. It's like, why did they fight them individually for so long just to
Right.
get to the giant monster thing? And it's just that part really dragged because it was going from like different Earths, showing everybody fighting the same monsters and not being able to defeat them. And it's just like, okay, we get it. They're really hard to beat. There's
That
a
was
whole
the
bunch
problem
of
I had with. That's the problem I had with the second. With the second one is you have areas that stretch so long, and then
Yeah.
other areas that just felt like they were cramped.
Right. No, you're right. Yeah. Because it was the second one when I was
First part
like,
didn't feel that way.
right. Because it was the second part when I was like, did I miss something? When I was talking about the weird editing, it's like
Yeah.
they should have spent that time filling
Compressed
in those gaps instead of like, I mean, there must have been 20 minutes altogether of them fighting those shadow creatures. And it's just like, yeah, we get it.
Now we understand why there's so much light in your spectrum there, Justin. Because you
Right.
hate shadows.
I hate those shadow creatures.
You are never drawing another shadow or silhouette
He
ever
hates
again.
these shadows. More shadows.
Quit staring at me, Shadow.
But yeah, I mean, obviously, I'll for sure check out part 3. I want to see it finish up because that's when all the crazy stuff happens. But yeah, part 2 is definitely. I mean, part 1 was definitely stronger.
So far.
So, well, I mean, it was definitely stronger than. I mean, part 1 was definitely stronger than part 2. Is what I meant to say.
Right.
It was pretty good overall. Like I'm not
saying the guy who hasn't seen part 2.
No, but I'm saying the first part. I
Yeah.
watched the first part.
No, I finished the first part and I was excited to watch the second. I was like, cool, I want to see where this goes.
Yeah, that was pretty good. That was a pretty good representation of what I remember.
Mm-hmm.
It leans a lot of. I don't know. The Flash is one of my favorite characters, and so I was really happy that he was prominent in all of this early on.
But he's extremely prominent.
Yeah, exactly.
To an unfortunate.
Yeah. But see, that's one of those DC comics that I did
who
read.
knows?
I read Mark Waid's Flash, and a lot of that, and so I have a mild investment with that character at least. And I don't know. It was all right.
Yeah, I mean, as far as like DC animated movies go, I mean, it was way down the list for me, but
right. That's the thing is, like, I've seen others like with the DC Dark,
mm-hmm.
and some of the other ones, like they really kick ass.
I remember I haven't seen it in a long time, but I just remember the Red Hood being like one of my favorite ones. It was so good.
They've been producing a lot of really good animation.
Yeah.
And so
the DC
animation for a long time.
Better than the DC.
What's that? Hold on. What's that, Richard?
The DC animation is always better than the studio movies.
Oh, 100%.
Way better.
Yeah.
Not and the same with Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. A lot of their stories, the storylines at least, were phenomenal.
I loved them, and like I said, that's coming from a guy who's not like really a DC guy, but I loved the Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. They're super great stories, and even characters I wasn't previously invested in, I liked, and so
and it was cool because you got to know all these little minor characters that you wouldn't really know otherwise.
Yeah,
and then boom. Well, I think we've discussed enough Crisis for now. Let's go on to what we really want to talk about. Richard's headbands.
I love my headbands. My headbands are awesome.
So, how about that X-Men 97 stuff going on there?
It's all right. Just kidding.
Yeah.
It's great.
I mean, it's
No,
okay.
I mean,
Yeah, it could use some work.
I'll be back.
Rich is about to go work on it.
yeah. No, I mean, what can I say? It was good in the beginning. It was good from the start. Episode 5 was phenomenal, and then from there things just got crazier and crazier, and it was great. It was one of my favorite things is how they just kind of kept Wolverine in the background. This wasn't like a Wolverine story, but he had his moments to shine, and I mean, everything was great. Everything, what they did with Nightcrawler was phenomenal. He's my favorite, so I was super happy about that. And
I think we can all four agree that X-Men 97 was pretty freaking awesome, right?
Yeah, I have
It
very few notes.
pretty freaking awesome.
Yeah.
So let's just proceed. Enough with the review. Let's just proceed to geeking out, shall we?
Okay.
Like, what was your hardest geek out moment of this show?
Nightcrawler using 3 swords.
Yeah, that was rad.
Agreed. I thought that was a pretty awesome sequence.
Yeah, I mean that whole fight scene with him and Wolverine, and
Wolverine getting sucked into the teleportation.
That
was awesome.
It's so great. I mean, just the way Wolverine was falling from the Blackbird and just slicing up the Sentinel people on his way down, and then went through like 3 floors of the mansion, and then him and Nightcrawler fighting together. It was just it's everything you want from an X-Men cartoon. I mean, and then just all the stuff with just with Rogue was so good. Good. And seeing Wolverine put on his fucking brown uniform, it's great. That was one of my favorite geek out moments. I mean, it was up there with Storm getting her old costume back when she got her powers back. That was awesome. No, it was. I mean, even Rogue was wearing her villain outfit from the Avengers comic, and when she joined up with Magneto, and I mean,
100%.
so much little stuff that was just like
little things, man. When for me, my hardcore geek out, there was like 2 hardcore geek out moments. Okay, there's Fatal Attractions moment when Magneto pulled the medal.
Yeah.
Okay, leading up to that whole fight sequence, I was like, oh no, is he going to? Oh, is he going to? Oh shit!
I mean, my jaw hit the floor when they just showed Wolverine's claws go through Magneto and there was blood.
Right?
I was like
that. For me at that moment, I was like, I was backtracking. I'm like, did they show any violent moves up until that point in any other episode that would lead me to believe they would hold back on this?
It escalates. It escalates.
It does escalate a little bit.
Yeah. And so when
Magneto, I called it. That was when you could, because they were compressing so much X-Men knowledge, lore.
Right.
Just, they compressed a lot. And you were like, yeah, okay, this is about that time. Asteroid M, Magneto, they go up there. Yeah, this is about when that happens.
Yeah.
All that's missing is the Acolyte. Where's he at?
Well, they see. So I loved it. Let's say that first of all, I loved it a lot. But I do feel like they compress a little too much in certain places. I feel like Inferno deserved a little bit more time.
See, I think they weren't sure they were going to get a second season, so I think they were just like pulling out all the stops.
I think they were planting seeds. And I hope that with the extended seasons now, the added seasons, they're going to go sliding down those branches and taking us on those stories a little bit more expansively.
They cruised through my memory, about 8 to 10 years of comic book lore in about 10 episodes.
Yeah.
Oof.
Easily.
Yeah. From about 1989 through about 1990, 8, 9, whatever,
Yeah.
It was a clipping pace, and that's the thing is like this show was such a joy. The animation was so good. The way they did everything was so well represented. I
Mhm.
wish that this had been stretched out over 4 seasons.
The fight sequences
Oh man.
were
Yeah.
so well done. So not only were they so well choreographed, the hand-to-hand battle sequences and stuff, but Cyclops fighting was the shit. Like watching the different variances of
Yeah.
like visor beams that he was launching out of him.
Oh, like when he
And-
like shot Bishop to charge him up.
Right.
It was
all
so
that.
cool. I was like, I mean,
Yeah.
I'll say this. This is the most I've ever liked Cyclops.
Right. I cheered for Cyclops. And I
Yeah.
was like, dude, especially in that last episode, he's just blasting people left
Yeah.
and right. He's like, like, I thought his head was going to fly off.
Right.
And then he takes off his glasses and he's like, do it.
Yeah.
And just unloads on every. Oh my God. It was so awesome.
This is such an unapologetically late era in the X-Men where they are so good. Like this is them at their prime,
Right.
These characters at their very prime, and they, like he was the first student, and now he's a badass, and he's earned that, like he's earned those power upgrades. If you want to think about it,
Yeah.
And even Sunspot.
I'm as a New Mutants fan, like Sunspot being prominent, that was a joy.
Oh, and then when he was in his New Mutants costume, I was just like,
Justin, totally.
Yeah.
Richard, you seem like you're holding back. What do you got? Hello?
No, I'm just my internet's pissing me off.
Oh.
I'll switch to my phone. No, I absolutely love it. Like I everything about it. I was geeking out constantly through it. Like everything. I mean, obviously the Fatal Attraction, but just to actually see Cyclops represented properly. He's never been, other than in the comics, he in every show and everything, he's always a Boy Scout, always just, and that's not the way Cyclops is.
Yeah.
He's a troubled leader. Yeah, it's just to finally see him like stand up and have a spine, because I've always been a huge fan, and that's probably my biggest takeaway. That's what I've loved so much. Obviously, the way every character is represented, they show like the layers they show on Rogue is amazing. And her constant struggles, the way Magneto is, and you can see his evolution too. But just for Cyclops to be represented properly, I mean, I think as far as I can recall, it's the first time it's been done.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I thought they were going to show Vulcan, and I thought they were going to show his old man too.
Right.
Especially when they were doing the whole Nathaniel Summers and Sinister
the Shire,
thing.
Yeah.
And the Shi'ar,
yeah.
I was waiting for the Brood, man. If the Brood would have showed up, that'd have been it.
That's what I'm saying.
You would have got a phone call from Alicia the next day. AJ's heart erupted out of his chest.
They compress so much time, like they can only do so much, and they really did shuffle around some things too.
Yeah.
I
think they did a good job of like the
timeline
shuffling though, and made it all make sense.
So what was there anybody on the show that got on your nerves? Just anything about the show or anybody on the show that got on your nerves?
Well, I feel cheated that we didn't get to see Storm go through her best non-power period. Lost her powers and she was with the Morlocks, and like there was so much good story there. I was watching it with some friends, and I'm like, no, they were
her as the leader of the Morlocks.
I'm like, no, you don't understand. This is Storm's best period.
Right.
She's gonna rule. And then they just kind of didn't give you all of it. That made me kind of sad,
Yeah.
Well, I wish they would have done something
period, I wish they would have done something like with each of the storylines. Do
it. What do you got to
Richard, go.
I'm gonna say through that whole Morlocks period is when we got the Storm that eventually becomes the leader Like she becomes
that's how she becomes. At least she
much
grows
more
into it.
confident, and
Especially after the fight with her and Callisto, where they have to, go hand-to-hand combat, and they're beating the shit out of each other.
She kind of proves herself without her powers to be the leader, like that the mutants need. And then when she gets her powers back, then it's just like she's so much more like the goddess that she always.
Right.
She doesn't just prove herself, but she proves to herself as well.
Right.
Because up until that point, all she knew of herself was that she was a good pickpocket and thief, and then she became a goddess.
That whole progression, I felt cheated out of that because that was such a great storyline for her, know. But that's such a small, like I said, they had to compress everything, so you don't get it all.
No, that's what I was saying. I wish they could have done something like with all those storylines, done it in like 3 episode chunks.
This needed to be 3 seasons.
Yeah, like the
last one season should have been 3 seasons.
That's
5 if you want good storytelling, but 3 would have done it nicely.
They did an amazing job in 1, but it could have just been so sweet in 3.
Yeah, I just don't think they were confident, or I don't think they knew that they were going to get more seasons.
Shit, we even got the Mojo Reverse, and we got Arcade. How often there's such big characters,
the Mojo thing
lead to such big storylines, and they get crammed in there.
See, like the last season,
Mojo is such a huge storyline.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
and going back to Inferno, I feel like Magic got cheated a little because she's Justin and I love that character.
Yeah,
right.
And that Inferno storyline, she was such an integral part, and she really only gets to be like one of Morph's. So many characters only get to be one of Morph's.
Morph Smash.
Yeah.
And
it's sad but it's fun to see them, but you're like, but yeah, I want that character though.
Yeah. Like the last season of Star Trek Enterprise was really cool because they did 3 episode chunks for the whole season. Yeah. So every storyline was a 3 episode arc. I thought that was such a good idea, and something like that would have been great in this. Like a 3 episode arc of Inferno, of Mojo, and done like a a 9 or 12 episode season to where they can have 3 or 4 arcs, and then while all that's going on, they could be building up all this stuff for the Tolerance's extinction arc and do it that way. But I honestly just don't. They wouldn't need to be like, okay, we guarantee you guys are going to get more than 1 season, and so you can take your time and all that.
They guaranteed them 2, and they're almost done with the second one,
right?
But we're not going to get it till Christmas of 2025.
When they fired the director.
They fired the director 2 days before the show was released.
Yeah,
but all the shows had been produced at that point. When you're that far along, so they fired him after he'd already produced this season, and it's fucking amazing. You're like, you fired this dude? You better have a really
and no one knows why.
Like, damn, what would it have taken for him to keep his job?
No one knows why, because Disney's not talking, and that Bo guy's not talking. And
that's weird because this is good.
They all signed NDAs, so they can't say anything for a while.
Right.
Sure.
But yeah, it's just weird.
This thing is good, and I hope they can find someone that can replace that dude, the director, because clearly he was working. Like, this was good.
I hope he's shadow directing it somehow.
Well, I mean, because I've listened to a couple of YouTube things about it and a couple of podcasts, and I mean, it sounds like this was like his baby. Like, most of these ideas were like his ideas, and the way to
wasn't he the one
plan it out, and the way to mesh up the old storylines into this like new storyline.
From what I understand, he walked into the studio and said, "Hey, I got this idea.
Mm-hmm.
Let's bring back this show, and here's how we're going to do it." And they all bought on board with it and did whatever he wanted him to do.
That's the impression I'm getting.
That's the Rick and Morty thing. Like they do with Rick and Morty thing. And then as soon as they got what they wanted out of him, they let him go, just like with Rick and Morty.
Yeah, that doesn't always work. You're like,
Yeah, well,
There's more to this story we don't know.
right. I'm not saying there isn't. I'm just saying from the outside, that's what it appears like.
Yeah. No, and it sucks because that show is genuinely great, and I want another season just like that, and probably won't get it without that director. You know, they're gonna have to find somebody, and the next person is almost never good as the last person.
Speaking of which, what about the spoilers for next season? All those that dropped at the end of the episode. What was your favorite spoiler? What are you more excited about? Do you guys remember any of them?
Yeah, no, I do. I'm not sure about them being in ancient Egypt. That seems weird.
That's some apocalypse shit.
What's that?
That's some apocalypse stuff.
It was all apocalypse. I mean,
Yeah.
past and present. Yeah. But I mean, it looks like he's gonna. I'm guessing resurrect Gambit for one of his horsemen. That's kind of the impression I was getting.
That was what I was looking forward to, because I love Apocalypse.
Mm-hmm.
I that character. Like, I felt like the X-Men live action Apocalypse did him dirty.
Oh yeah.
Poor Pedro.
I know, but I'm just saying, you know, like it was.
Well, that was Oscar.
The X-Men live action did everybody dirty.
Huh?
Poor Oscar.
Yeah, so I was like, yeah, I want some Apocalypse, because Mr. Sinister is like he's all right, he's fine, but he was never a favorite of my villains.
No,
just a powerful one. But Apocalypse, I get down with Apocalypse.
See, I liked.
You get Archangel, you get the Horseman. You know,
yeah.
I liked Sinister because it was because of him we got Vulcan, and because of Vulcan we got the Annihilation Wave, and in the Annihilation Wave we got Galactus captured, tortured, and sliced up and turned into a weapon. Okay, so that was kind of awesome for me.
Right.
And I thought Vulcan was an awesome character. And Vulcan and his two brothers together, they were pretty awesome.
I was surprised we didn't get like a Havoc cameo at all.
That's what I'm waiting for. We have to.
I mean, it was like a mild thing. It was very quick. Just like that was a problem I had. It's like you saw every mutant for about 5 frames.
2 seconds.
Yeah, I didn't remember seeing Havoc. Yeah,
it was a Havoc frame.
I want to see the full on villain Havoc.
Yeah.
But also, I want to see him be part of the team too. You know, like, you know, he and Wolverine's interaction. Like, I don't know. There's so many X-Men that they've left out. You know, and that's what I'm saying. They move too fast through this.
You know, just do a whole season of Meltdown. Fuck
yeah,
it.
let's do Meltdown. Come on. Can we get animation in the Sneakovich style?
No. You really want to mess with everybody? Give us Age of Apocalypse.
No, you can guarantee that season 3 of this cartoon is going to be the Age of Apocalypse.
Yeah, I think they're for sure going to at least touch on it in season 2.
Especially at the season they're moving at. You know, like they'll hit it at some point soon.
Yeah, I'm sure we're going to get no more mutants, Age of M, at some point. But that means they're going to have to introduce Pietro and Scarlet Witch.
Well, you know, they still have to go through the mutant.
They've already shown hints of Scarlet Witch like twice in this season.
That's true.
So she is, like when they were showing the poster behind who was it? But anyway, we had like all the faces like presumed dead. Missing. Scarlet Witch was on that.
Yeah, I saw that.
And then when Professor X and Magneto were in their little mind meld thing, you saw silhouettes.
Onslaughting.
What's that?
Onslaughting.
Yeah, you saw silhouettes behind Magneto, and it was Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver.
Oh, that's right.
So they've already like sprinkled her in there a little bit.
There was a few Quicksilver moments.
Yeah.
Certainly, you know, so.
Well, yeah, no, that there was Morph as Quicksilver.
Yeah.
I remember those.
I was saying, Morph was basically as everybody. That he was like the cameo machine.
All right.
I mean, he was the Hulk.
Yeah, but how about you put those characters in this?
Right.
Someone brought up a good question on
These characters are
online.
rad. How about you put those characters in this?
Someone brought up a good question online that said, if Morph can transform to any of these characters and have their powers, why didn't he just turn into Magneto and reverse everything? My answer is it wasn't in the script.
Yeah, that's the only answer.
Right.
His power pool is too big. If this was a role playing game, I would throw him out of the room. I'm like, dude,
He's Legion. He's Legion.
not very power pool. Everybody.
But he's Legion without the crippling insanity.
That's what I'm saying. He's Legion at this point. He can tap in every power in the world.
Not okay. Like no one granted him.
No, because Morph is insane.
So is Legion.
I don't know. I would have thrown Morph's player off the table. Like, no, dude, you got to re-roll. Much.
That's how they roll, though, man.
Yeah.
What storyline are you more anxious to see coming up? If there is a storyline to see coming up, what do you really want to see the most?
The Mutant Master is going to be rad.
See, I said his name and he disappears.
Yeah, the Mutant Masker is going to be rad. And because that leads into Archangel, like with Apocalypse, like in general.
Yeah.
Crucifixion of Angel and what have you. Like,
but didn't we already have it? And
did they have it in the original X-Men?
This is going off of the animated series, so
did they do that?
I don't know. I may take the time between now and next season to catch up and rewatch everything just so I know where the storylines are.
Yeah.
They shuffle the storylines around so much it's hard to gauge which ones are which, because they
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen the original X-Men cartoon in so long, and you know what? I don't know if I've seen every episode.
I didn't.
I watched the last season going into this.
Oh, okay.
Because they had just re-released it or something, you know.
Well, yeah, it's all on Disney Plus now.
Yeah, and so I watched the last season, and nothing they did except for bringing on Nimrod touch base with anything that had anything to do with music.
Did they do the Mutant Masker in earlier seasons? I mean, I do remember Archangel being on that show.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I remember Archangel.
Explain like how he got there. I don't know. It's been a long. We're talking about since the '90s since I've seen that.
Yeah, same. So that's why I'm going to rewatch it before next season.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
And I don't care. On here and report. No one remembers that shit anyway. Clearly, no one remembers that shit anyway.
Right.
Can we just,
if someone's going to remember it, it'd be us.
Yeah, we'll be fine. Just
literally. Richard, what's the thing that you want to see, the storyline you want to see covered most coming up in the seasons?
Age of Apocalypse. That's another one that I absolutely love that storyline. Like,
yeah,
I mean, they kind of skip either that or the invasion of the Brood. Those are two that are just awesome that I think would make great animated, films basically, but shows like. But it's just if they cram all that information into one episode, it would suck.
Yeah,
I agree.
It is cool. It is cool that they did the Charles or the Lilandra stuff, the Shi'ar stuff, during this period because that leads into that Brood stuff.
Right.
Specifically, because the timelines have been mixed up, as it were, they could have that Brood storyline now, because they reintroduced the Shi'ar and that cool like superpowered team, the Imperial fucking team,
Imperial Guard. Yeah.
It's weird that they could go back and do the Brood storyline and then turn around and do the Age of Apocalypse, probably within a single season.
The thing is, I worry for the same reason they didn't do the Brood before, for the same reason they don't do the Brood now, because of the new Alien movie coming out.
Well, they
worry about similarities.
Yeah. It was an Alien ripoff, if we're being
absolutely, but
yeah.
With the new Alien movie coming out, the similarities will be there. Hard.
There's a TV show and a movie coming out.
I know
both of those at some point.
I know. I'm excited for both, but
I am too.
especially the new movie that I love is awesome. So awesome. Anyway, moving on.
Story for another time.
Yeah.
Oh, it looks amazing.
Yeah, it looks good.
An
Justin,
alien horror movie again is going to be awesome.
Yeah. Justin, what storyline do you want to see coming up?
Yeah, Age of Apocalypse would be great. I never read the Shawnee stuff that they hinted at in the other
in the finale,
the post-credit scene. So, I mean, I know of it, but I never read it because that's Rachel Summers when she's old, right? That's who she is, right?
All that cable stuff, right? Cable.
Yeah.
I remember that. I read that stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It had something to do with Dust too. Wasn't Dust up in there?
I don't know. I remember Rachel Summers being old and it being about cable in a John Connor-esque Terminator.
That's where Cable got sent when he went into the future, and that's where he learned to be Cable.
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I would also like to see some of the stuff during the Australian years.
Yes.
With Lady Deathstrike and the Reavers and that kind of stuff, I think would be really cool. I'd love to see the Reavers animated.
That's what I'm saying. The Mutant Master.
We've already seen them.
The Reavers and Siege Perilous.
We've seen the Reavers and we've seen Lady Deathstrike.
Did we see them right though?
We saw them in X-Men animated.
See, I don't remember. So
Lady Deathstrike showed up as a morph.
And then we saw them in Deadpool versus the Hulk.
I never saw that. So
I never saw that. Was that
it also had Wolverine versus Hulk in it, or Thor versus Hulk. But there were two short.
Yeah, there was Wolverine versus the Hulk and Thor versus the Hulk. Yeah,
that's right. Those, and so one of them had Deadpool in there, and the Reavers and all that, and the Deathstrike. And all
I mean, in relation to the X-Men storyline. That
was in X-Men the animated series.
Okay. See, I don't remember it, so that's why.
I remember the Reavers, but I don't remember Australia, and I definitely don't remember the teleporter dude.
Yeah. Gateway.
Gateway. Thank you. So, what I would like to see is the Brood. Lots of the Brood.
Yeah.
Oh, those are some of the scariest moments. The image that I had was, I think it was X-Men 211. It was Wolverine on the cover, and he was turning into a Brood.
Yep, it is a Mark Silvestri cover, and it was phenomenal.
It was beautiful.
Yeah, him on the train,
oh my god, it was so beautiful, and he had the tattoo on his head. Everything about it was so pristine. I loved it.
And when you look at the poster for, I can't remember if it's the first Creed or the second Creed, but it looks like a total ripoff of that cover.
Yeah, exactly.
It's pretty crazy.
But I'm going to see that. And I want to see Annihilation Wave.
Yep.
But I doubt we'll get to Annihilation Wave. We'll probably end up getting to... I just want to see more off-world stuff. And more of the stuff where they bring on the... bring X Factor with them all the time. I don't remember the storylines.
They kind of skipped over X Factor and went right to Jim Lee Red and Blue.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, that's the they hinted, it was hinting towards, because you were getting Cyclops leaving, which would be him leaving and Storm taking over would lead us into X Factor, and then no, never mind.
And the whole Madeline Pryor thing, and
well, we need to get to Mutant Marauder or Mutant Massacre.
Mutant Massacre. That's what I'm saying. The Mutant Massacre.
So that we can get
time-wise, they've already skipped that.
Yeah, they're all. But that thing is, they're all over the place.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. We need to get there so that Colossus can die, and then we can.
They haven't even brought Colossus in yet.
No.
He needs to die so that we can skip forward, get to the Joss Whedon years, and and deal with those.
It is messy. They've done a pretty good job of juggling about how messy it is.
Yeah.
I have to be honest,
And don't forget about Excalibur.
Well,
Oh,
and
I
what about the New Mutants? We got that one movie, but there's a whole lot of good stuff that could be involved in this, and they're just like, I don't know, I don't want to hear about that.
I mean, they could just do a whole New Mutant spinoff, and
that
would be just fine.
Let's have an ex-MCU, okay?
And I do want to say, like, the animation was amazing.
You got to think season 1 is always testing the waters.
Yeah.
So it's going to put more. We may see more shows spin off. From this.
It's very possible. It's very possible there might be a New Mutants or an Excalibur.
The voice actor for the Spider-Man animated series just came out and said that he wants to do Spider-Man 98. Now that they had pulled him in to do X-Men 97, do Spider-Man's voice on X-Men 97.
Yeah.
He's saying he wants to do Spider-Man 98 and wants to do a retro series of Spider-Man. I'm like, well, that's cool and all, but Spider-Man has had a consistent Spider-Man show.
Yeah.
Going almost every other year on Disney one way or another.
Aren't those the clone years? I could do without that.
Yeah. I mean, maybe the Gang War years, but
Spider Island.
But I mean, everybody's talking about because of all the cameos that have been showing up in X-Men 97, but seeing those characters getting their own spin-offs and stuff. I just want to see either a New Mutants or an Excalibur, which at this point in the storyline, that's when we'd be getting to a little bit, or at least the X factor of the business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, we haven't even seen Shadowcat yet, so we got to get there before we get Excalibur.
Right,
Huh?
Jubilee is Shadowcat.
What's that? What'd you say, AJ?
Oh, Jubilee is Shadowcat.
Oh, well, Jim Lee certainly thinks so, but I don't.
Right.
I'll say, remember that they brought Jubilee in the show instead of Shadowcat to replace.
Well, I know because Jim Lee brought her in the books to take out Shadowcat.
Right. So yeah, we'd have to get.
As great as Jim Lee was, there was a lot of decisions I didn't care. He didn't like Nightcrawler, so there was never any Nightcrawler in those books. He didn't like Shadowcat, so there was never any Shadowcat in those books. But that's just me.
I'm loving Nightcrawler in the show recently.
Oh, it's great. It's perfect. Dude, every line he has is poetry. I love how they represented his faith, him being like a man of faith in it.
He's another one.
Go ahead, Richard.
He's another one, just like I said with Cyclops, where he's being represented correctly for the first time in anything.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah.
And he's just he's Errol Flynn, dude. That's how he's portrayed. I love it.
It's perfect.
He's just got such suave, debonair style to him.
Remember that his 4-issue limited series, limited series, like that's exactly what you want.
Yep.
Right.
That's exactly how you should be.
Yep.
Always a pimp.
I agree wholeheartedly. Yeah, I think the biggest standouts, I mean, for me, were for sure Nightcrawler and Rogue. I think
they did Rogue a lot of justice.
They did. They really, really did. And like when she like broke bad after Gambit died, that whole episode was so good. And her whole conversation with Captain America was really, really good. And
they're throwing your shield. Oh, you don't need this.
Yeah, yeah. If you can't get your hands involved, I guess you won't be needing this. Yeah, it was so good. The writing in this show is phenomenal. Like everybody's like speeches and their dialogue.
Broke bad. I was like, what? Did I miss the episode where Rogue starts smoking meth?
Yes. No, but everybody's like dialogue and their speeches, and I mean even what's her name? The senator chick.
Yeah.
that was working with Bastion and then set Magneto free. I can't remember her name. But even her speech about, Magneto and humanity and all this stuff, and then she ends it up with like, it's all led us to figure out that Magneto was right. And I was just like, oh shit, she said it. And the dialogue is just so good in this show.
I flash forwarded to Omega Kid and his shirts. Yeah.
I want to break out the Magneto's right shirt again. It's been too long.
No, it was, even beside the whole, the story writing and everything, like the dialogue was just so good. It's like,
and the animation is top notch.
Yeah. Because when I see clips of the original X-Men show, I'm like, oh God.
Right.
Because this one's so good, I forgot,
Right.
They really brought it.
And it's like it's done on the skeleton of the old animation.
Right.
But it's just like, look, we just took it and we made it 4K.
Right.
Like that's all we do.
There was a couple of scenes when Rogue, after Gambit died and Rogue was going around, punishing people.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a couple of fight scenes I swear were just straight out of Marvel vs. Capcom. There was a couple of poses.
That was the last episode for me. Cyclops blasting everybody.
Yeah.
I swear, if Ryu slid in and did a Hadouken at the same time, it would not have phased me.
Right.
Like I'd have been like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Or M. Bison somewhere.
It was probably an influence, At this point, it's all part of it's all probably all an influence.
Yeah.
And thank God that we grew up and put ourselves in power in place to where we can make our TV shows like this.
Right.
So thank us, the geek generation.
Not us. We didn't. I didn't do it.
You kind of work in Hollywood. You kind of do it. We carry the traditions on.
True.
We all work on comics at some point. One of us pimps toys.
Cool. Well, I got to get scooting. Are we about ready to wrap up?
I got nothing else. Anybody else?
Well, I don't want to keep you. I was going to mention Roger Corman dying.
That's a bummer.
We lost a great this week.
Just want to say rip to the master of B movies.
Yeah. Even beyond that, how many people he got started, that have made some of the greatest movies we've ever seen, and he got them all started. So, and actors and if it wasn't for him, like fucking throwing everything against the wall to see what stuck.
The dude never stopped, and he created an immense mountain of things which all of us have built off of,
Right. Yep.
So, just want to say that. Rick Corman.
Hear that for sure.
I'll remind everybody, please check out our websites when you have a chance, forbiddenpanel.com. Check out crookedsmilecollectibles.com. Don't worry about Joey and Justin. They don't count. Joey, you still have your website up?
It's up.
It technically exists.
Is it something you want people to visit?
You can go to it. Sure. It's lab23studios.com.
And you can find Justin anywhere Forbidden Panel or Necrosapien Press puts their pants down at.
That's true.
So thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll talk to you guys on the next episode.
Cool. It's good talking to you guys. See you later.